What's up, everybody? So, for anybody that just watched the video that I just uploaded, we just talked about the results from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3. We're not going to talk about very many of them. However, we are going to talk about the final match, which was the NXT Championship match between Bobby Roode and the challenger, Drew McIntyre. And that'll be towards the end of this video. So, if you haven't seen the results from that, I want to give you that fair warning. With that being said, we're going to get into the video. So this video is going to be talking about things that we think may need to be done in regards to the NXT Championship, acknowledgments, things along that line. So the first thing that we need to really think about is, should the NXT Championship be considered a world championship at this point? Now, I understand it's a developmental brand, but however, that being said, people pay to go see these shows. People pay to go see these champions. They have 4 champions on the show, being the NXT Championship, the Tag Team Championships, the Women's Championship, and the United Kingdom Championship, although we're not going to get into that and how badly that's been represented since it was created. But, that being said, it's got 4 titles. A main title in the NXT title, tag team titles, a mid-card title, being the United Kingdom Championship, and then a women's title. That's the same layout that we have for SmackDown, WWE Championship, Tag Team Championships, US Championship, Women's Championship, and the layout we have for Raw with the Universal, the Tag, the IC, and the Women's Championship. So, with that being said, you got the WWE and the Universal Championships at the main focal point of their show being considered world championships. Is it time that we consider the NXT Championship a world championship? And that's not my only driving point for that. The driving point, honestly, is that look at the track record of the people that have held the NXT Championship. Okay? We're going to run through them. Seth Rollins, a former 2-time WWE champion, a former 1-time US champion, and a former 1-time tag team champion, who's also getting a tag team title match tonight at SummerSlam with recently reunited Dean Ambrose against The Bar. So who knows, that might become a 2-time tag team champion. But still, he's a 2-time WWE champion. And then he was beat in NXT by Big E Langston, now just called Big E, who's a former 1-time Intercontinental champion, a 2-time and longest reigning WWE Tag Team Champion, longest reigning in history, ever in WWE, or WCW, or any of the predecessors, ever. And now, he's actively the SmackDown Tag Team Champion, or at least 1/3 of them. Now, we do have the one little blemish on the NXT title, that being Bo Dallas. However, I don't blame Bo Dallas. I blame WWE for repackaging him too many times. He was a great, smart heel in NXT, and then they took him to the main roster and they made him a joke. It's not his fault, but he is the blemish. He's the blemish, but we're going to move past him. Then you get Neville. Neville, while he hasn't had multiple title reigns like a bunch of the guys that that we've talked about and that we're going to talk about, but he is, granted it's a young division, the longest reigning cruiserweight champion, and he carried that division on his back for 8 months. 8 months he carried the cruiserweights. He's phenomenal. And then we get Sami Zayn, who has yet to win a championship, but he hasn't been squandered yet like Bo Dallas. And from what we understand, there are big plans for him in the future to be a future world champion. Kind of going the Daniel Bryan route, making fans wait for it, and that's fine. Sami Zayn's going to be a future champion in some way, shape, or form. Then we get Kevin Owens, who was the longest reigning Universal Champion. Granted, there have only been 4. But he held that title for a long time. Majority of its lifespan so far. And not only that, but he's also a 2-time Intercontinental Champion and a 3-time US Champion, also getting another shot for that title tonight. He's actively in title scenarios. I honestly think that there hasn't been a time frame since he debuted where he hasn't been in some type of title picture. It's just been consistent with him. He went from being NXT champion to being in a U.S. championship title picture kind of thing with John Cena, and then all of a sudden he jumped and went after the Intercontinental Championship. He held that title twice, and then he dropped that a little bit, and then a little bit later he got put in a program, took the Universal title, held it for the longest anyone has, and then as soon as he dropped that, went straight into a U.S. Championship program with Jericho, and he's been in the U.S. title picture since. If he's not champion, he's number one contender, and it's been like that since WrestleMania. He's just been in a title picture since he made his main roster debut. Arguably, with the exception of Seth Rollins, the most successful former NXT champion so far on the main roster. And then there was Finn Balor, who was the first Universal champion. Disregarding anything anybody else has done, no one else on here, except for Seth Rollins saying he was the first NXT champion, no one else on here can say they went to the main roster and was the first champion. No one. And he did it on his pay-per-view debut at SummerSlam last year. He beat Seth Rollins to become the first Universal champion, a world championship. And then he got hurt. And since he's come back, he's still struggling to get back into title pictures, but he'll get there. And then we get Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura, who traded the NXT title a couple times, and neither of them have made a title resume on the main roster. However, both of them are in World Championship matches tonight at SummerSlam. Both of them. Samoa Joe being in the Fatal 4-Way for the Universal title, Nakamura getting his one-on-one chance against Jinder Mahal for the WWE title after beating John Cena clean for the number one contendership. And then, this is where the spoilers that I told you about earlier, so if you haven't turned off the video yet, now's the time. 3, 2, 1. Alright, so former champion Bobby Roode, after losing the title to Drew McIntyre last night at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3, is, we have to assume, going to move up to the main roster. He's established himself in TNA. He's a former TNA World Champion, longest reigning TNA World Champion. Maybe Bobby Roode might have passed him, not Bobby Roode. Bobby Lashley might have passed him. But Roode's established himself as a main event player. He got to NXT and was in the main event scene, like that. He's going to make his main roster debut sometime soon. And then, who knows where he'll go. If he'll go after a mid-card title, if they'll kind of do what they did with Kevin Owens and kind of let him start in the mids, build his way up to the top. Who knows? But he's future champion on the main roster. And then you got Drew McIntyre, who's already been champion on the main roster. He's a former Intercontinental champion and tag team champion with Cody Rhodes, for anybody that doesn't remember that. And he just won the NXT title. And this guy has been traveling around the world trying to make a name for himself since WWE cut him out a couple years ago. You know, he went to TNA. He won the TNA Grand Slam Championship, the TNA World Championship. He's a champion. So you've got this long list, which, let's do the math, 2 for Seth Rollins, 1 for Kevin Owens, 1 for Finn Balor. We'll even include TNA, 1 for Roode and 1 for McIntyre. And so that's 6 world championships. Rollins, Big E, Dallas, Neville, Zayn, Owens, Balor, Joe, Nakamura, Roode, McIntyre. 11 people. Oh, not to count the fact that Samoa Joe, forgot about the fact that he had a bunch of TNA title reigns too. X Division, Tag Team, World Championship. The point is that out of the 11 men that have been NXT champion, Bo Dallas is the only squandered. All of the other men have been actively in title pictures. Maybe not Sami Zayn yet, but he will be, don't worry. And everyone else has been. It's time that we acknowledge that and we accept that the NXT Championship is not a promotion. tool. It is not something that we give to somebody that we want to move to the main roster. It is something that we give to somebody because they're the best damn wrestler in NXT, and when we decide to take it off of them, it's because we need them on the main roster because they deserve to be there. That's what it needs to be, because it deserves to be a world championship. People around the world tune in, and that's the main title on the NXT brand. The FCW brand, when that existed, had a heavyweight championship. The SCW World Heavyweight Championship. Why is the NXT not called that? Why is the NXT Championship not called the NXT World Championship? We have the NXT Tag Team Championships, the NXT Women's Championship, the United Kingdom Championship. The NXT Championship needs to be considered a world title. That's the first change that needs to happen to the NXT Championship. The next thing that needs to change is that it needs to stop being wasted. It's being wasted. And I know people are going to be like, wait, what? No, you're wrong. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Think about it. It's only being given to guys that are going straight to the main roster. We've only had two people be two-time champions, and that was when Joe lost it to Nakamura, took it right back, and then dropped it right back, and then Joe went to the main roster. And then as soon as Nakamura dropped it to Rude, he went to the main roster. Rude and McIntyre are the only people that have held that title that are still on NXT, and the only reason that Rude's still there is because he just defended it last night. Give us some NXT champions who are going to stay in NXT for a while. Make it feel like they need to fight back to get their belt. Make it a belt that matters. Stop making it a promotion strap. That's my biggest issue with it. It is. My biggest two issues are that it's not considered a world title and that it's a promotion strap. It's not something that people strive for to be the top of NXT. It's something people strive for to be pushed up to the main roster, to be at the bottom of the main roster. You're literally telling me that the NXT Championship is less valuable than the Cruiserweight, IC, and US Championships. Now, granted, the US Championship and the IC Championship, they're historic. They're prestigious. But the NXT Championship is at the top of its brand. It needs to be respected. They're not going to keep Rude on the brand, and that's fine. Rude's older. He needs time. He needs to get up to that main roster when he still has time to flourish. But with Adam Cole's debut last night at Brooklyn TakeOver, they need to have Adam Cole and McIntyre feud over this title, drop it to Cole, maybe even have McIntyre try and fight back and be like, no, this is my NXT Championship, and fight back for it, and have Fish and O'Reilly attack McIntyre, put him on the shelf for a month so that everybody thinks, all right, McIntyre's going to the main roster, and then have McIntyre come back and just destroy Adam Cole and say, I'm still coming for my belt. Make the belt something people are going to feud over, not drop and then never see again. But hey, these are my qualms with the NXT Championship. These are the things that I think should happen. If you have any opinions, if you think anything should happen, please let me know. Let me know in the comments. Tell me what you think. Maybe I'm wrong about what you think, what you agree or disagree with me on. Tell me ideas that you have for NXT to make the NXT Championship, or any of the championships for that matter, better. Because obviously we could do a lot of work with the United Kingdom Championship. So that's all I got for this video. Go ahead and do me a favor and like and subscribe to my channel. That way every time I upload something, you know when I've done so. And we're going to talk about, sometime in the upcoming days, we're going to talk about what happens here at SummerSlam. I'm not going to do these kind of things for every Raw and SmackDown. If a big thing happens, maybe a title change, stuff like that, sure. But I'm not going to bother with this kind of stuff for just regular shows. This will be mainly for pay-per-views and stuff like that. The reason that we're doing this about the NXT title is because now that McIntyre's won it at last night's TakeOver, it's just showing a consistent pattern, and it's something that we need to change. So that's why this is being brought up now. But from pretty much here on out, the only time we're going to really do videos is in the week leading up to any kind of pay-per-view. the results of said pay-per-view after the pay-per-view ends, and then if anything super out of the ordinary happens on a regular show, then we can all talk about that. So that's all I got for this one, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See you.